Hey, thanks for joining us here on 90s Plus. I'm 90s meteorologist Chris Bianchi, and I want to take a look back at the pretty impressive snowstorm that we had over the weekend back on Saturday and Sunday. We picked up as much as, in the mountains, 30 inches of snow, and here along the Front Range, some areas coming in with 14, 15 inches worth of accumulation. Most of us in the Denver area, somewhere between about 3 and 12 inches worth of snowfall, which I know is a big range, but it was very dependent on exactly where you were in the metro area. The north side of town, generally speaking, picking up between about 3 and 8 inches. Boulder about 7. Arvada about 6. North by 70 saw some 3s and 4s in places like Thornton, Westminster, places like that. But south side of town, that's where we saw some of those double-digit snowfall totals, including over a foot of snow in places like, say, Castle Rock, Castle Pines. So let's look back on the storm. The best way to do it is actually by taking a look at the satellite this morning. What you can see there, and I put those arrows in there, those are 2 narrow snow bands that set up. So what happened over the weekend was we had a storm system move its way on through. The jet stream, a little narrow ribbon of really strong winds, about 30,000 feet aloft in the atmosphere, that was sitting right over Colorado. When that happens, it kind of leads to a narrow band of very heavy snowfall, basically right where the jet stream is, and those bands move very erratically. They move with the jet stream, and as a result of that, and that was part of the concern with the forecast and the difficulty of it, the challenge of the forecast was going to be exactly where those bands set up, and where you were underneath one of those bands, you're going to get a lot of snow, and where you were, if you missed out on the band, you probably weren't going to see a whole lot of it. And so that's why you can see those very distinct bands of heavy snowfall. And this is, again, based on the satellite imagery that we're getting on this Monday morning as we recorded this. But in Denver, we still, even though Denver itself, Denver proper, mostly missed out on those snow bands, we still picked up officially 7.5 inches worth of snowfall accumulation at Denver International Airport, the city's official observation site. Some parts of the city on the south and west sides of town see as much as 9-10 inches worth of snowfall. I didn't even see one 11-inch report on the south side of town. And then north and west sides of town, generally speaking, saw about 5 to 8 inches worth of accumulation, but still a pretty good snowstorm, no doubt about it. And officially at the airport, 7.5 inches. And I know a lot of people often whine about the fact that the airport is the official observation site. I'll say this, that 7.5 inch total I think is a pretty fair representation of what we saw across the city. It's probably right in the middle of those really high totals on the south side of town and some of those lower amounts on the north and west sides of town. So again, I think it's a pretty accurate representation of what we saw, and it was also our earliest snowstorm this big since 2009. So 7.5 inches of snow, getting that in late October, it happens. We've had it on a regular basis of late in the last 20 years. We have noted a downtick in these fall snowstorms. Fall in particular has gotten warmer and drier for us along the Front Range, but this obviously an exception to that overall trend. 7.5 inches of snow on October the 28th and the 29th. Around the metro area, let's look at some of those totals. Castle Rock did see 12.5 inches of snow, but Castle Pines 10.5 inches, Parker 9 inches, Littleton 8.8, so Boulder about 7. So pretty good snowstorm again across the metro area, and a pretty impressive one, no doubt about it. Into the mountains, widespread foot plus worth of snowfall. The ski resorts loving this, and the ones that ended up with the most were actually Crested Butte and Aspen Snowmass, where they picked up over 2 feet worth of snowfall. Same for Monarch Mountain. Just a very impressive snowstorm up into the high country, and in particular, I should say, the central mountains. This was, again, with these narrow jet stream induced snow bands, even in the mountains, that led to some of these kind of narrow funnels of really intense snowfall. And for the West Elk, the Sawatch, and the Mosquito ranges, those are the ones that it looked to me like you ended up with the highest totals. Even the southern edge of the flat tops did pretty well as well. So very, very good snowstorm for the mountains. And what that did as well is it boosted our snowpack numbers. Here's a look at those updated snowpack totals as of Monday, October the 30th. With the Gunnison River Basin, notice how much higher the Gunnison River Basin is compared to the North Platte River Basin. So North Platte would be the Yampa River, or part of the Yampa River Valley, as well as getting into Rocky Mountain National Park. More of the Front Range mountains, that would be the North Platte, and also the Elk Heads, the Parks. Those would be the mountains that are covered by the North Platte, and they only picked up about 6 to 12 inches up there. The Gunnison River Basin, that's where we saw some of this jackpot 2 feet plus totals. That's why the Gus River Basin is so much higher right now. These numbers, again, I take them with a grain of salt so early in the season that they don't really matter all that much, but it does go to show that we're starting to build out some of that snowpack in. Also, with all that snow and all that cold that set in during and after it. Well, Denver, as of Monday at 11 a.m., had 62 consecutive hours at or below freezing. That number will snap around early afternoon on Monday, but it did drop down to 10 degrees in Denver on Monday morning. That made it our coldest morning since February the 24th. So, top line takeaways from the snowstorm that we saw over the weekend. One, it was a pretty good one, especially for our friends in the high country. 2 feet worth of snowfall. Palmer Divide, a foot plus worth of snowfall. Bit of good news with the snow that we did see, though. There was a lower water content within it. The amount of water that was within it, if you went outside and picked up the snow, it was a bit fluffy, right? It wasn't that kind of heavy, wet, dense snowfall. And that was honestly a bit of a concern of mine, was that this would end up being one of those heavy, dense, wet snowfalls. It did end up being a bit colder than, frankly, what we forecast. That's good news. The colder the air mass, the fluffier that snow tends to be. We don't want those heavy, wet snowfalls, especially this time of year with those leaves still in many trees. That can, those leaves mean that those trees are more prone to holding on to more of that snowfall and therefore weighing them down more easily. If we had had another quarter inch of liquid, this would have been a widespread potential, I wouldn't say devastating, but this would have been a pretty nasty snowstorm in terms of knocking out power, lots of down trees and power lines. Thankfully, this was not that. We just missed out some of those higher end impacts, but we kind of got the precipitation we wanted, kind of needed. It's been a very dry October. We did get the moisture without the kind of really big headaches. So that was overall good news. So top line takeaways again, we saw pretty good snowstorm here along the Front Range. Mountains, very good snowstorm, and very, very chilly for this time of year with 10 degrees in Denver on Monday morning, making it our coldest October temperature since 2019. So pretty chilly, no doubt about it, and another cold morning ahead for Tuesday and perhaps for Wednesday as well. It does moderate by the end of the week, but hopefully it gives you a good idea about what we saw, what caused it, and also looking at some of the cold temperatures we saw from this snowstorm as well.